welcome to another episode of Unscripted. I'm Nathan Catino, and I'm with Adam Hyman. How's it going?
It's awesome. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
It's day 2 of South by Southwest. Things are kind of quiet now because no one's here yet. We're just
That will
our
change.
folks. That is going to change. As you were here yesterday, you know how nuts it was
It was
yesterday.
great.
I think we had close to 300 people that came through, so it was a very busy day.
Yeah.
But this is a great festival, so thanks for being here. I know you're recording your podcast as well.
Yeah.
Tell our audience a little bit about you, your background, what your day job is really.
So I'm a media arts technology teacher with the New York City Department of Education. I've been teaching for 26, almost 27 years now.
Wow, okay.
I've taught 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and really the last good part of the last 18 years of that has been media arts.
Okay.
So everything from coding to animation to content creation in the classroom, it became a hybrid computer, quote unquote, computer class with how to create.
Mm-hmm.
What's the artistic side, the digital art side of computers.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like I always call it a buy one, get one free. They're learning how to use the computer through art and technology.
That's pretty.
So been doing that for a while now.
That's pretty good. And obviously, we'll talk about the podcast too, because that's something that I know is taken off and done really well. Let's kind of run into, because you're using a lot of AI, and I know the state of New York is doing a lot of stuff in this as well. But talk about prompting and using AI in the classroom, because I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, Microsoft right now has partnered with the New York City Department of Education almost to create its own AI platform that has guardrails, that is safe for the kids to use. They kind of, what it's really meant for is to teach the kids how to use it, what the whole process is in this kind of micro world, sealed micro world.
Sure.
And some schools have actually started a pilot program. My school will start a pilot as well soon. And it's really just going to be that whole, how do you prompt? How do you put in to what you want to get out? What's the input output? And how do you reprompt if you don't get that? And then also how to use it appropriately and to understand when something is what it should be and maybe something that you should probably shy away from, that you maybe can't trust too much. So there's a lot. And I think for elementary school kids to get their hands dirty with that a little bit, even if it's just a little bit, is such a huge advantage once they go further down. I know we mentioned classroom dynamics. I just had a college kid on from the University of Texas here, and we were talking about how she's using it. And just so you can, now I'm getting more of a clearer picture as to how we're going to start with it in this very infancy stage to really where the kids need to go to be by that college level. And she was a senior. And just the way she's using it is just amazing. So the whole idea of it has changed and evolved, and very rapidly since, really it came out, 2-3 years ago, really?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Now, Gary K from Rave Pubs is going to be here later, and he's bringing, I believe, 15 of his students, so college students, that take his AV class. It's going to be really interesting to hear the other side of that.
Yeah.
A little older, how they're using it today. But the thing I like about prompting is when I saw prompting, I'm like, this is just like coding, but much easier.
Yeah.
And the whole concept of if then else, if you wrote those
Right.
statements, it starts making sense to you. But we're exposing the general public now to coding in a very strange way.
Right.
Well, it's not strange anymore, but in the beginning it was strange. Really, do I need to give it all this information?
Yeah.
But as you know, the more good inputs you give it, the better outputs you're going to get. And it also has to depend on what it's using as its source material, right? But I think it's great that you're doing that in the classroom. So let's talk about your podcast, because tell us how long it's been out. I know you've had a lot of success. But tell us where you started, how you started, why you started. I want to know it all.
So Miguel Maldonado of Logitech in New York City, that region, he helped us with BTV. I know we'll talk about that as well.
Yeah.
And at the end of the pandemic, our first true solid year back to quote unquote normal, wasn't really, but it didn't feel like it, but it was, everyone was feeling at least you were back to some sort of normalcy. He had asked me to do a podcast that Logitech wanted to do through Logitech Education, an educational podcast. Would I be willing to do it? Because no one in their department was still in the classroom. Everyone had been out for a while or was never in it to begin with. And I said to him, this was in June, last week of June. So we've already gone through that normal first year back. And I said, I don't know. that was a wild year. I think I need
Yeah.
a break, that took a lot out of people. And I didn't know the first thing about podcasting. So, I knew a little bit about television production. I went to college for that. I knew a little bit, I had that background. I worked in television before I was a teacher. And so I kind of figured I could learn it, but I kind of turned him down. And then it was, I don't know, he must have texted me or called 2 or 3 straight days in a row. Come on, just do one.
Persistent.
Just do one. Yeah, he was very persistent. And I finally agreed to do one. And it actually worked out better than I thought. It really, we were able to kind of slide in from what television production is for me anyway, to go into a podcast. And it turned into, can you do 3 more?
Yeah.
Okay, can you do 5? Can we do a season? And now it's almost 3 years in, and we've done well over 100 episodes, listened to in 123 countries, almost 1,800 cities around the world.
Wow.
That blows my mind. I tell this people all the time, I say this, we're not talking about the Kardashians or sports. We're not complaining about education, right? We're not saying, the education system is horrible, and we're not getting people on to complain and do that dirty roundabout angle.
Right.
We're giving its professional development, educational technology, professional development, regular professional development, having people coming on to talk about things that people like me are, basically being faced with every day.
Right.
And I think that's why it's been so popular lately. It's really taken off the last year, which is great.
Do you feel like most of your audience are basically teachers like yourself?
Teachers, educators, sometimes parents.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've had some people reach out from social media that they're just a parent, and it's nice to hear
what's
what's happening. And the reasoning behind it. Sometimes we've had, experts in their field with the science of reading. We had Dr. Marianne Wolf of UCLA come on and just explain the science of reading behind what they're learning in school and why and how. To move the technology away from the youngsters, to introduce it later on, they have to have that and the reasoning behind it. So, the more we do it, the more we expand and broaden the topics and what we're really trying to hit. And then we're getting more people as a result who are not necessarily in education, which is nice.
Right. So I will tell you something, and this is I'm not blaming you for this at all. But the new math you guys are teaching in school, it's fun because my kids will come and they'll show me these things like math mountains, and I'm like, what the heck is a math mountain? And then they start telling me, I'm like, this makes no logical sense to me at all. We used to memorize multiplication tables up to 20, right? We were doing calculus in high school, way back when. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. At the end of the day, so they'll ask me how do you do this problem? And I'll do it in my head and I'll write it down. And they're like, how'd you get that? And then I'll show them. They're like, this is nonsense. This is not how we were learning. Yep. So the fun part for the parents, as you probably know, is we go to Google and then have to Google what is a math mountain.
Or AI now.
Or now AI, definitely, absolutely.
Can go a step further.
So not a big fan, but apparently it's, the other side of that is it's teaching them to think about math differently. Right. And yes, you probably the same like me. We probably learned the hard way. We just had to memorize numbers and memorize, formulas and stuff like that. But they are now thinking 4 different ways to do the problem, which is actually really good. It's just frustrating for the parents because we don't know what they're doing. But I guess you could say that really about anything.
When my son, who's now 25, 26.
26? Not sure.
25. And my daughter, who's 18, when the math changed at that time, he had a harder time with it because there was that change, that mental switch for him.
Okay.
Whereas my daughter kind of went through that through elementary school, and that's all she knows.
Yeah.
And so either my wife, who's also a teacher, helping them was easier for us because we were also being trained
on the new curriculum.
But it was still hard, because wow, that's a weird way of how to. You're right. Yes, you're doing the same math problem 4 different ways, but how do you explain that to a 3rd grader?
Yeah.
And allow them to pick which way is the best way for them. Whereas you're right. You and I, we just memorized facts and that's how it worked out.
Right.
So we turned out okay.
Yeah, we did. My wife is not convinced that I turned out okay, but
I can balance a checkbook.
And now my kids are going to be like, you've talked about math mountains on a podcast. I'm like, yes, I did.
Yes,
I did talk about that. All right. So talk about BTV. So I've seen some of the videos. They're pretty freaking good. I have to admit. For kids that are that little, that are talking to a teleprompter, it's very impressive. So walk through the concept of BTV, how you got started and where you're headed now.
Again, the pandemic. I think everything, it's so weird. The pandemic it just obviously changed everything for everyone,
Right.
no matter what. I mean, it doesn't matter what level
Right.
industry you are, it changed it. But for education, for us, that changed it because we had so many kids working from home. I worked from home. I didn't have to be in. I was driving to work to go on a computer just to drive back home. And eventually I convinced my principal I should just do this from home. What's the point?
You were going to the school?
I literally was going to the school, setting up my computer.
And teaching kids.
And then going home. And so after like a week of doing that, I turned to my principal. I said, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to stay home. And she agreed. She said, it is. From that, because we had so many kids working from home, she had asked me about doing some sort of morning announcements just to keep the community together. The kids are, maybe we had 3/4 of the kids working at home. That was a lot.
Yeah.
And so she said, can you do this? And I instantly said, yeah, I could do that. And she said, you can? I said, yeah, I was in television before I was a teacher. I worked on talk shows, news. So she said, this is great. Tell me what you need. And I basically gave her a list of stuff right then and there. I said, and you know what? We're going to call it, our school logo is a B. We're going to call it BTV. It had a nice ring to it.
Okay.
I literally right then and there, we're going to call it BTV. She loved it. And we came back and we tried it, and, worked out the kinks, growing pains. And then the next year, I really started to look into how to do this. Put the green screen up, create backgrounds using the PowerPoint and Zoom to have that background change. How to set it up maybe with a teleprompter so the kids don't have to read off paper because it looks weird, right? You're sitting there like this, and they're not giving you that eye contact to the camera. So it basically set up what I remember when I was in school for television broadcasting and what I did in the real world. And literally in a 10-foot by 10-foot spot, we created BTV. And now I only take 5 kids, by the way. I take the cream of the crop of my school, 5th graders.
Yeah.
They get nominated through their 4th grade teachers, out of classroom teachers give me feedback. Then I have them come down for a read. They come on the set like we are here with the bright lights and the teleprompter and have them go through it to see how they react. I have my BTV kids who are current also give feedback to me and say, oh, she's really good. She would be great. And I take all that into consideration and I pick 5 kids.
Wow.
And so they literally every morning, 5 minutes live for the whole school. They Zoom in and they watch the school news, the pledge, social emotional word of the day, school news itself, or highlights or whatever we want to showcase, and then weather and sports. It is literally all packed into 5 minutes, and it is every day just 5 minutes, and it's amazing. It is amazing. Kids, they go through the hallway and they see our BTV kids. It's the BTV kids. It's the BTV. They're like little celebrities in the school, especially when kindergarten sees them. They're looking up to these 5th graders, and they see this this figure, and it's not an adult. It's coming from a kid.
Yeah.
When a kid is doing the social emotional word of the day, and telling someone how to calm themselves down and giving them tips, breathing or counting or whatever it is, that's impactful. It's not coming from me. It's not coming from the school administration. It's coming from another student. And I think it has a big impact. So it's been just a huge success in the building. I wish all schools would have that.
Yeah.
I think all schools need to have something like that.
I'm going to have to talk to our school about this because it's really, really great.
Yeah.
Somehow I think
it's not hard to set up.
It's not hard to set up.
It's not hard to set up.
I just have a feeling I'll be pulled into the mix.
You're going to be pulled into the mix. And we do use Logitech equipment, which helps. It really does.
Yeah.
The cameras, the lighting, the
It's
microphone.
I think,
it's simple.
yeah.
And we're using the education, the Logitech for education hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
So it's easy for the kids to know how to set it up and to turn it on. And they really run the whole show now. Now, at this point of the year, I usually just sit on the side and watch and take pictures.
Who writes the scripts?
I'll write the script.
Okay.
Just because of time.
Sure.
But what I always do is 3/4 of the way into the year, so usually March, which is this time frame, they get access to, they always have access to the script so they can look it over the night before, but then they get the editing access. So now they can start to, see, this is what I put down for them. Now, I wouldn't say it that way. How would I say it? And I let them kind of edit a little bit.
Yeah.
They can't change the whole thing. They can't rewrite it, but if they want to say something a little bit differently in their kid voice or tone or whatever it is, I let them have that little freedom.
I will tell you, I write stuff out. I hardly ever use teleprompter because I really don't like a teleprompter.
It's hard to use.
I just typically go. And it's hard to kind of read and concentrate. And until you read it the first time on the teleprompter, you don't know where you need your commas or where you need your pauses. or like sometimes it just doesn't roll off your tongue correctly. So you want that ability to edit. So I typically, I'll write it, I'll do it once. I'm like, I hate it. I'll go back and I'll change it. And usually it takes me 3 times or 4 times before I get the script right. And then I go, and then it's fine.
In real news production, you're going to have a writer writing for the newscaster. That writer will write and produce, give it to the newscaster. The newscaster would then, like I'm doing with the kids, we're doing the exact same thing. Here's the script for today. Here's the news story for today. Okay. Reading it over. I don't know if I like that word. I'm going to change it. I'd rather use this word. And they'll have that freedom. So you're giving them that adult, job-related freedom to kind of be who they want to be. I used to have a kid. He was amazing. His name was Liam. He loved sports. Every time he was on for weather and sports, it would go off the rails because he'd be giving the information about the Yankees, Red Sox, and Aaron Judge might have hit a home run. Now that might not have been in the script. It might have just said the Yankees beat the Red Sox 5-4 in extra innings. Really, really exciting. He would then, the whole teleprompter, we would have to stop it because he would start going into the details about the game. Aaron Judge hit a 450-foot home run, and it was in the bottom of the 9th, and wow, the crowd went crazy. And sometimes the kids were like, where am I? Like, what are we doing? And we would just have to pause really quickly and pick up. But he was so good at that, so it's those kind of skills that, the reading, the writing, the listening and speaking, those are huge skills that people need to have. BTV allows them to do that. And I'm really proud of them. Every year, the kids are just amazing. We go to some real professional news stations, ABC, we've been to CBS, News 12 Long Island, and when they walk in and see a studio like we have here, but then you go into a studio that is professional and they're seeing the exact same thing that we do. Now it's on this grand professional scale. When they realize, wow, they're using a teleprompter, that's set up just the way we have it. The way we have the weather, we'll have the monitors on the side so the kids, when they turn to point to the weather, they can see. They're not looking directly at the cameras, but they're pointing.
Do you have the weather map in the background?
We'll have the weather maps in the background, and the kids will turn, but on the side, we have it duplicated.
I see what you mean.
So they could read off the teleprompter if they want, but they literally can look and see that.
That's impressive. I didn't realize you guys were doing weather, too.
And the fact that they can look directly at the camera and talk off the teleprompter, and then turn, and if they wanted to pick up off the teleprompter and point and know where they're looking, they do a really good job.
That's awesome.
I mean, some adults do this for me when the kids are away for like their senior trips and they'll get off sweating, just soaking wet. How do they do this every day? How do they do this? That was crazy. 5 minutes. How do they do this?
Wow.
It's amazing. They're like little professionals. They really are.
So you're building future creators and newscasters and everything else, right?
You never know. We were at CBS one time, and the news anchor, we were being interviewed on their set, which was a huge treat for the kids. It was a huge treat for me. I loved it. I was like geeking out on this
I would love to go.
Oh, it was fantastic. And it was Cindy Hsu for Channel 2 News in New York City, and she said, how many of you want to be in television? And out of the 5 kids that I had, 4 kids raised their hand. And she picked on the one kid who didn't. And she said, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, I want to be a writer. I like writing. She goes, you can still be in television. We have writers. And she explained the whole process. And then afterwards, she's like, yeah, I guess I could do that. You make that connection, that career-ready connection when you're 10 years old.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
There's nothing better than that. And when they see that and they understand, when they get that look in their eye and they understand what we're doing is being done in the real world, just on a much larger scale, that's the cool part. That's the cool part.
Now, we've talked about production, film, teleprompters, all important parts. So what about, you mentioned writing, but what about like Canva and Adobe Express? Are they getting those kinds of skills as well?
Content creation is what the kids do now. You can't get away from it. My newest tagline now is innovation. You can't get, you can't get away from innovation. It's not optional anymore. You have to incorporate it into the classroom. Canva for education, Adobe Express, these tools that are available for the kids now, are just amazing. I mean, just for you and I, it's amazing. With the AI, it's just amazing stuff that you can do. And so when you can control that with using it for, a social studies project or a science project, and I can connect that to the kids to have them create an informational poster or a digital sketch note that you can print out. Study notes that you can make in a fun way. Like we didn't have that. We had paper and pencil.
Right?
And then and that's how we took our notes. You could do timelines, animations. There's just so much you can do and connect it back to any curriculum area. Math. We were talking about math earlier.
Yeah.
Explaining the steps. Maybe you could have a group. They're using Canva for education. Maybe they're creating I don't want to say a PowerPoint, but a presentation. And maybe every kid in their group, they're putting in a different way to solve a problem and teaching someone else step by step. And using elements and, again, just animations.
Yeah.
Drop in video. They could actually take video of themselves and drop that in and explain it and teach it at the same time.
See,
this is really amazing.
This is really great because, like, I feel like with TikTok and some of the other creation tools, I mean, yeah, they're really cool, but they kind of take the fun out of figuring out how to do it all.
Yeah.
And I'm very much a nerd, if you haven't figured that out yet. And I like to understand how the pieces work together. Right. In the end, yeah, I would like a shortcut tool, but I need to know where it would break potentially, right? So it's always like with everything with me. So I love Adobe Express and the Adobe products. And obviously we use a ton of Canva. We use a lot of all the Adobe Creative Suite products as well. Yeah. But my fear with TikTok and with Snapchat and everything else is that now you've got all these filters and all these effects that you just click, and now you got the easy button and you have no idea how anything's actually working. Right. So when you get out of that, because there's only so many things you can create with those tools. They're really good for, I think, somewhat lo-fi kind of things that work great on social media. But if you're going into film, you're not going to use a TikTok tool or CapCut or something like that. And CapCut is very functional, right? But so I'm glad you guys are teaching them the basics of all that. It's kind of like going back to the non-math mountains, the basic of math that I still hope someone would do at some point.
You need to do that.
Yeah.
You have to, at an elementary school level, again, it's the same thing with AI. We can even go back to that again. If you're not teaching the kids how to read, write, learn the old school traditional way, you can't really ever get to the prompting part because now you're not thinking.
Right.
We want the kids to think.
Right.
We want the kids to understand why they're asking a certain question. So when you go and do something with Canva and you have the kids get into digital groups, and sometimes I don't even let them sit next to one another. They have to sit on opposite sides of the room, but they can still be in the same project.
Right.
If it's a Women's History Month project, if it's a Black History Month project, the research comes into play. The building of it comes into play. The design features come into play. Whether you're using a template or not, you're still changing, so you're still adding your own personal touches to it. But all of that doesn't come into play unless you have those basics in that pre-K, K1 timeframe.
Yeah.
Then you can start to kind of introduce bigger and better.
Sure.
And then even the AI, when the kids say, I want a picture of, a cat driving a car down, a desert highway, they may not find that in Google, but they might have that idea here. How do you now verbally, that think process, talk it out and prompt it so you can get that, what you have in your head is that image, that thought to actually come out. Those are skills that they're going to need to have.
I agree 100%.
Whether you do it now or you do it later, they're still going to need to have it. So you might as well do it earlier and get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
Just give them a taste of what you can do it with it. Not to say, I need you to write me a 500-word essay on whomever. I wouldn't even want them to do that. That's ridiculous.
Right.
But to write your own stuff and then maybe copy and paste it into an AI platform where you can prompt it to give you feedback and then go back to it and still you're doing your own writing. So there's so much you can do with that content creation, and Canva and Adobe Express let you do that. And it's just what you can do. Like, you think about it, right? When you and I were younger, we had Microsoft Paint, and I still teach the kids how to do that.
Oh, wow.
That's how I teach the kids how to even save on a flash drive. I'm still doing basic older school technology stuff because I still want them to know how to use that stuff. Then you go into Google Drawings, and now you have more freedom to kind of move around and play digitally. You could do PowerPoint, but those things are now starting to become more outdated with platforms like Canva and Adobe Express.
Right.
But so it just allows you to do more things. And we do posters, movie posters. I asked the kids to bring in their favorite childhood book. Doesn't matter what it is. It could have been something that mom or dad read to them when they were 5.
Yeah.
It could even be something that's a little bit older if it's a child book. And I asked them, we do a whole lesson on the design features of a movie poster. What would it look like if you took your book and it was going to become a movie, and it was your job?
That's awesome.
To give that information out in that poster version, that visual only. What does it look like? We study different movie posters and the lighting and the fonts and the placement, and maybe there's not a lot, maybe there's a tremendous amount. What's going on? Is it action? If it's not, and they create these things. You couldn't have done that a couple of years ago.
Can I come take your class? I feel like I need to come take your class at some point.
I have fun. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm working. Yeah, because I have fun with the kids.
Yeah.
And when you hear on the other side of the room, you hear a kid say, "This is so cool."
Yeah. It's your checkbox.
I can walk out and retire and be very happy. That was the cool part. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, last question for you. Since you use a lot of the Logitech products, I'm curious as to what your favorite product is and what the kids like. Like, what's their favorite Logitech product and what's yours?
So recently, since I started, I'm doing a podcast. So, right, I have to now teach podcasting. Of course. It's just in my head. I have to do it. I wasn't told. I make my own curriculum.
Yeah.
But in my head, I'm like, wow, if I'm teaching, if I'm doing it in real life, I have to teach it. Mm-hmm. So we have the Blue Arm, we have a Blue Yeti.
Yeah.
And we do a whole podcasting unit. They have 5 minutes to talk about a topic. And usually I do it around April. So it's usually like Earth Day related or something like that, innovation related. They have a blast with it. And it's easy. So I teach them just the setup. I teach them the whole process of researching, writing the script. Who's going to ask the questions? Who's going to be the one who's going to give a little bit of information?
Right.
So it's not necessarily a Logitech product as a whole.
It's more of the whole setup.
But it's part of the whole process of how do you do this using the technology. You can't do it if you don't have the technology. We talk about on the microphone, all the different dials you have.
Yeah.
If it's going to be radial or directional or, how is it going to pick up the sound? And how are we going to sit around the table? How loud do we have to be? Can we monitor the audio levels?
So you're using the Blue Compass or the Logitech G Compass Arm,
right, I think that's what it's called.
Yes. And then which mic? The Yeti Pro, the Studio?
Yeah, the Yeti Pro. It's hanging upside down.
So it's a USB mic, essentially.
Yeah, with the USB mic and with the air, the pop filters. And they love it. They feel like they're like little talk show hosts, radio people. And it's it's like an extension of BTV where it's content creation, but it's a way that they can really have fun with it and be themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not telling them how to do it. I don't tell them, okay, you have to be the host. You're gonna ask these 3 people questions. I want you guys to do it. I let them figure it out. I give them all the jobs and the roles. I tell them how I do it. And I have them listen to one of my older podcasts that I've done with kids, and they just take off. It's amazing. You have to see, and just watching the process and even the end process. Right. They work on it for weeks.
Yeah.
But the end process of recording it, and the other groups sit around and listen, and they give them an applause at the end, usually by themselves. I never have to tell them to do this. It just organically happens. It's cool stuff. We didn't have this stuff when we were kids. I wish I had this stuff.
No, we didn't have any of this stuff when we were kids.
It's a shame that we don't
I think my early podcast may have been plugging a microphone into a karaoke slot in my VCR and hitting the record button. Yep. What's your favorite product? So you have access to a lot of our stuff and use things both for the kids as for personal use. So I'm curious.
The whole BTV setup, I love. We have the Logitech Brio as the camera. It's perfect because it's small, it's compact, the quality is great.
Right.
We have a Blue Yeti mic sitting there because
probably the Yeti X or the Studio. You used both, right?
I think both we have.
The Studio is the XLR one.
Right.
The Yeti X is the USB. The newest USB one.
Right. And we have the Logitech lighting, so it's like it not that I have a favorite, but it's just the whole.
The fact that it's all set up
all
together.
The parts that make up that whole to allow us to do that kind of stuff. You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
5 years ago. You could have, but it just wasn't the same. You couldn't have had the same results that we have today.
And I think the other interesting thing too is that they all work well together, yes, in terms of setup, but even the software works together, right? So basically you have your webcam, your microphone, all that stuff all comes together really nicely in a nice package. And I think that's what people say, hey, this is just the easy button, right? Yeah, yes, there's different components.
If the kids can do it, then I'm happy with that.
That's the ultimate test, right?
And again, some of this you can use as professional grade equipment, and it is, but it's so intuitive and easy for the kids to pick up on it. And sometimes you don't even have to explain it. They just pick it up and go.
Just figure it out. Yeah.
It's crazy. I tell the kids, when I was a kid, I think I was in 3rd grade. My parents brought home our first microwave oven, and it was like this big, probably.
1989?
Probably.
Yeah.
And it, it was an oven.
Yeah, it was massive.
Right.
I remember.
It wasn't like this little gadget you could have on your countertop. No, it was like this heavy, big oven. And I said to them, we had to learn how to use that stuff. They don't even know that. They just go and use it.
Yeah.
There's no thought process. It's just part of their life. And technology now, everything we're doing, iPads or digital creation or animation coding, whatever it is, it's so ingrained in their DNA when they're born. I always say, a kid has 1,000 pictures taken of them before they're like an hour's
easily
here, of a day old, and they're in it. So you might as well meet them where they are, because they're not going to meet you where you are. It has to be the other way now.
Right.
You have, as a teacher, an educator, professional, parent, doesn't matter. This is their world.
Yeah.
So you have to use the technology and the tools that they want to use.
Right.
Because that's the only way you're going to get them to engage with you anymore, especially since the pandemic. The pandemic, I think, screwed things up a little bit. But, so if you use it appropriately to get them, like Canva, to really research, and they don't realize they're learning and researching while they're researching at the same time, that's cool. Yeah. Because you don't want a boring lecture style kind of like working environment. It doesn't work anymore. That is old school. It's good to some degree where you're learning the process again in those lower grades, but once you get higher up, if you don't use it, you're in trouble.
Well, this has been great. I've learned a lot. I'm sure the audience is going to learn a lot. I will provide info about your podcast and about you in the episode when we release it on LinkedIn. But Adam, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been great. It's been great having you here all week too.
This is fun.
Not all week, but
a couple days here.
It felt like all week, didn't it? But it was only yesterday.
It definitely has felt like it's been all week.
That's crazy. Well, and we have a whole nother day to go, so we'll see how it goes. Thanks again, Adam, for being here. Folks, this was another episode of Unscripted. Join us next time for a lot more fun talks.
Great job. I love it.
Cheers.